First time. Let's go ahead and bring this slide up. Yep, you're good. But you're good to go. Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. I recognize some of your faces, but as a reminder, I'm Brian Seitz. I'm the VP of Business Development with Volunteers of America, Northern New England. I've been working on this project since what, Max? 2020? Yep, 3 years now. So it's been a very interesting ride along the way. But we've kind of reached a key point in the process, and that I'm going to give you kind of an overview of where we are in the process.
Where are the chairs facing this way?
Because it was the other way. Brian, go ahead. Yeah. So just kind of where we are in the process, as everyone knows, we've been through 3 referendum votes on this project. The last referendum vote, unfortunately, was around what the town deciding whether they wanted to have us demolish the building and build something new, which passed. We had tried everything we could to preserve that spot or that building, but it just wasn't going to work out from an engineering standpoint. And so the last vote put us in the direction of designing a new building to go on that spot. And today, what I'm going to be going through with folks is the designs that we submitted for the packet to the planning board. Planning board met on April 10th, was it? 12th, something like that, 11th, and passed our packet that we had submitted for this project with some conditions. One of those being the design meeting the historical zoning requirements for the project. But I just kind of want to walk through a little bit about the project first, walk you through kind of some of the design elements where we put into the packet, and then get some feedback and just answer any questions folks may have. So first and foremost, when we originally came in 2020 and had looked at the original building and doing a redevelopment project or a rehabilitation project on that facility, we were estimating the cost somewhere in $6.2-ish million range. Now we're projecting the development costs of the new building and inflation of materials and labor and everything somewhere north of $8.2 million. Doesn't really impact the project. I mean, we're going to still go after the same funding mechanisms. We're still going to go after the same funding sources. But it's just recognizing that there is a great amount of inflation. The sooner we can get this thing to a development phase, the better off we're going to be from a cost standpoint. Potential funding sources are the same. We're talking about low-income housing tax credit, which is a main state housing funding mechanism. HUD 202, which is a federal housing specifically for seniors that provides housing subsidy, rental subsidy for individuals who live there. There's other main housing subsidies, community development block grants, affordable housing program. There's a whole host of funding sources we're going to go after, including what we're hoping, and we're still waiting on federal guidelines on the Inflation Reduction Act. There are some tax credit programs within that we're hoping to access dollars to get some savings around energy efficiency to put into the building. The funding mechanisms that we take out on these buildings, the funding mechanisms that drive the development of these buildings, drive the restrictions that are put in place on the buildings. Okay, so for instance, the LIHTC age restricts the low-income housing tax credit program restricts the age to 55 plus and at 50% of the area median income. Okay, so there's an age restriction and an income restriction. HUD 202 has a little higher age restriction, 62 plus, but the same area median income. For each one of those, respectively, the commitment term is either 30 years or 45 years. So what you'll recognize in this building is that this will remain a senior housing facility for the term. If HUD 202 dollars are in it, 45 years. If you look at our portfolio of housing, HUD 202 is the majority of that housing. I would say 90% of it. We do have a couple low-income housing tax credit projects. All senior housing will always remain senior housing, will always remain under those programs. So as far as the timeline goes, like I said, we've gone through the phase of kind of doing some of the pre-development work, the engineering, putting the packet together for the planning board. We've gotten through that whole process. Now we're into the funding phase. what we would like to have happen, there's two phases to this project that will happen. One is the demolition and remediation of the site that's currently there. So there's some lead and stuff in the soil that has to be remediated. So we'll go through that process. That funding has already been secured thanks to Max and the town putting the efforts in on that. So we have that funding. It's just a matter of we're doing the engineering work and everything we need to do to figure out what we're going to do with the soils once we take the building down, how we're going to take the building down, what we're going to do with the materials and all that kind of. So we're working through all that engineering part right now, hoping that will happen this summer while we're doing the funding for phase two, which is the actual development of the site. And ideally, we would start that construction late next year, early 2025, once all the funding is secured. You're usually looking at a 18 to 24 month timeline in that construction timetable. So we're a few years out from people actually living there, but you'll start seeing stuff happening hopefully this summer. Kind of covered all of that stuff there. Max, want to bring up the first design. The first design, this is going to come up there. It's just this one here. So I just pulled a couple that we had printed out. I want to talk a little bit about what we did with these designs. So in order for us to go out for our funding, we're developers, but we don't have a bunch of cash sitting around. So we don't have access to a lot of capital. So we have to have a very good understanding of what it is we're building, how much it's going to cost, what's going to go into the facility. So what you'll see here is the shell of the building in a way that we can make some estimations on what this project is going to look like from a cost perspective. And so what you'll see here is what we're proposing is a design of the building that basically matches the current outline of the building when it had the L on it. So you'll have a 3-story building, flat roof, L structure. You know, of course, this is the north facing side where the parks are. This going down the hill, obviously, and then the private drive. Parking lot comes around this way. Over here is where the current tennis courts are, which I think are being relocated to another place. And yeah, so what you'll see from the front when you come into this is the view from the front. This is the parking lot from the back with the main entrance for the residents as they come in here. So you won't see parking on the front. We've looked at a lot of different ways to lay this out. We looked at, you know, maybe placing it all along the north side or along the south side and putting the parking up front. But what we landed on was what's kind of there as a baseline is, I think, what is most workable for the community that's going to live there. And I think the most acceptable layout probably for the community, because that's what folks know. Now, if we talk a little bit about the design elements.
What does that mean?
In terms of like how
History.
how the building currently looks and sits on the property.
Same.
Okay, so in terms of like the overall look and feel, so we had submitted some initial designs in the pre-application phase that were, I think we had some more blocky kind of structures working vertically as opposed to horizontally. Some people gave us some comments on that. And so what we needed to do, instead of having the very, very final designs of what we're going to do and the colors we're going to pick and all that, is we needed to soften that a little bit and just give people a different perspective on what it is we're going to look. The basic, like I said, the basic configuration is going to change, but what we can tweak a little bit is the different elements within the colors that are going to be on the face of the building and, you know, some of the materials that we're looking at. So for instance, right now, you've got this brick facade here. You've got basically a hardy plank, some sort of a hardy plank siding.
Material,
Is that?
the material, the black material.
So that's like a board, like a hardy plank board type material. So it's like a
Like a clapboard or?
Yeah,
a wide-
yeah.
a wide clapboard.
wide clapboard design, right?
What,
It's like a wide clapboard design. Again, I don't want people to get too hung up on the materials right now because that may change as the project goes on. But for right now, what we're proposing is this kind of clapboard board or hardy plank siding. We have a mansard roof to kind of give that flat roof a little dimension. This material here currently is metal. Again, you have the brick facade and just kind of a mixture of those elements going into it. Again, we may get through some of these discussions and people are like, well, we don't want it that dark. That's fine. I mean, we haven't settled on the color. You may not like the mansard roof or the metal. That's fine. We can look at some sort of, you know, shingle type material or something that's going to be easy to maintain. But for the most part, the overall design, as far as the way it sits on the property and the way it's situated here is kind of set, but we can tweak the elements around it. I want to talk a little bit about the flat roof because I know a lot of people have had a lot of questions about the flat roof. So if we think about the funding sources that we're going to be using, there's a lot of requirements that go along with this. A lot of those requirements around energy efficiency. So one of the things that Maine Housing requires is that the primary source of heat is going to be heat pumps with some sort of secondary heat, and that's usually an electric baseboard. So when you talk about a facility this size, and what we're talking about is 36 units, right? That's 48 condensers of heat pumps. So where do you put 48 heat pump condensers? The best place to locate those would be along the roof, because then it's out of the line of sight. It's not taking up the property along the edges. We can kind of hide them up there. Okay.
Could you say that again, please?
So the 48 condenser units, so you have, when you have a heat pump, you have the indoor unit, then you have the outdoor condenser fan unit. Those would all be located here because we're gonna have 48.
Visible from them.
That's why we're putting them on the roof, because if you're standing here on the road, your line of sight, you won't be able to see the condenser units.
Do you have any information on how noisy they're gonna be?
The fans on the condenser units for the,
Cause I know like on houses, they're very noisy, but I don't know what.
we have them on our buildings right now and they're barely noticeable. I mean, you can come to any one of our facilities that has them. I mean, I think there's the ones in Thomaston, I believe. You're welcome anytime to come check that out. The other thing,
Would they all have would the piping go directly down from the roof, or would it go down either
Yeah.
side of the building?
yeah, so a lot of that piping is going to be able to be hidden.
What's that?
A lot of that piping is going to be able to go
A lot
either
of it,
like
but
direct
what
down.
about all of it?
I'm not 100% sure about all of it.
Because I wondered whether there'd be channels going on the outside of the building.
That's potentially, I guess it just depends on where the head units are located within the building. We don't want to make too many cuts into the roof itself, because we want this roof as solid as possible. Right? So the other advantage that a roof like this gives us versus having a pitched roof with roof trusses is that if you have a roof truss, every 2 feet or however many, however much their space apart, you have the disadvantage of the air makes it through where the roof trusses are. Whereas with a flat roof, we can insulate the entire roof shelf itself. So this whole roof, we can basically seal the heat and keep all that energy savings in the building.
I guess I don't understand about the piping that would come down the side. You're saying you don't know about that, or
I don't have that design yet.
you know whether it would come down the side?
Some may come down the side, not all of it. If you're worried about pipes coming down to each one of the windows, that's not what is going to be in the design.
If the compressors aren't outside, you don't need to reach them for the pipe, right? So
Well, I mean,
there might be a couple.
there might be a couple, but obviously, as we're building since we're building from new, it's not like we're retrofitting an old building where you'll see the condenser unit on the side and then pipes running to a second or third story head unit. We can build that into the design so that they're hidden.
Could I ask, where is the trash disposal for the 36 units?
So there's a couple of things that are I want to point out on the grounds. So over here in this area, we're just showing a storage shed right now, but this is the area where you'll also have our trash.
And what would that look like?
It'll look like, your standard trash, big metal trash bin.
You mean
Yeah,
just
dumpster,
you mean
yeah.
a dumpster,
Exactly.
nothing nicer than a dumpster.
With a fence around it, generally is how we
What kind
do
of
it.
a fence?
Just like it depends on the facility. We have different types. Not like a chain link, but like some sort of nice fence so that it's hidden behind it.
Would it be a solid
More than
fence?
likely, yeah.
And
Some
not-
are vinyl. I think we have some that are vinyl and some that are, just kind of the dog-eared boards.
And where would the guest parking be?
There are gonna be 33 parking spaces for this 36 units. I estimate that we're only gonna need about half of the parking spaces that are actually, we're gonna be building here. So the 33 spaces would cover the residents, any staff, and any visitors that would come.
I'm sorry, I don't hear that well. So you said the parking would cover
The residents, the staff, of which there's usually one on-site person during the day, and then any visitors as well.
so there are 36 spaces.
There are 33 spaces.
33 spaces.
The planning board's requiring us to have 33 spaces.
So do you have any idea what percent of a facility like that would have automobiles?
Less than half generally.
Less than half?
Yeah.
And
If there's 36 units, why would you think that this,
That's
only half of them are gonna have?
if you go to any one of our facilities, you'll see that there is always more spaces than there is need for spaces.
And each house, each unit, I assume, is only gonna get one space? I mean, what
There'll be shared spaces for the entire facility.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So when you.
I'm wondering if.
Hold on,
yeah.
she has some questions.
Oh, good.
Very cool.
When you come again with plans for the planning board, I think you're gonna come with a couple of designs. Are you planning to do the slope mansard roof and then a flat version as well? Is that the kind of the two strategies you're going?
Well, I think we're pretty settled on the flat roof. And I think folks in the planning board were generally very supportive or accepting of the flat roof design. If we do.
I think the idea with the flat roof, initially, it kind of was turning people off a little bit, is that the actual top of the roof was a little skimpy, like it would, compared to what we see around town. A little bit more embellishment at that
Yeah.
edge, but basically, that's what I mean, it looks like these are all the same. You're showing the one with the sloped front. the
Yeah.
sloped.
So all these designs have this kind of mansard design on the third story.
was any thought given to the fact that it's in the historic district area?
Yep, the architect
Because
has
that
been,
doesn't look anything like it's historic.
so Max, do you wanna talk about the historic district requirements here?
Yeah.
The 80 grade building itself doesn't say Americana, historic to anybody looking at it. It's a 1930s modern building from the 30s, and there's nothing particularly historic about it, other than maybe a gesture towards having, panes in the windows or something. But otherwise, it's, that's what we're working with, is that kind of scale building, not a collaborative Americana historical village house, but in the large house. So,
But it's not 1930 anymore, and this is a small neighborhood with antique homes in it.
can you bring a sample of something that would have 36?
We have pages of them right here. All you have to do is Google Section 8 housing in New England, and you'll see.
Again, this is not Section 8 housing.
Well,
This is not Section 8 housing, and it won't be Section 8 housing. So I think we need to put this, I'm not this people.
The
Okay,
examples
this is,
we did are not all
Okay.
section, we just looked up homes.
Okay.
Only accessible, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's quite a few.
I have a couple things. I asked this question before, we didn't have the slide up, Max, when I was here last time, but again, there's a seat, view of the building that shows plantings on the north side. And when I asked about it, gentleman who was here doing the presentation that night said, can't happen because of the ledge.
You wanna pull that?
North side, you got it right there, it's right, no, go back to what you were. You've got plantings on the north side.
Yeah, between the building and the ball
Ball
field.
field. So is that accurate or is that just? for
That's
development?
just, that's just for perspective.
Well, I just respectfully say, don't put it in
Okay,
because it's dishonest in a way. I mean,
Yeah.
just, it's maybe not dishonest, but misleading.
okay.
To have that,
This
this line, that line there. I think it'd be great if it could, but I also understood the ledge issue.
Yeah.
It can't be, but probably shouldn't put it there if it's not gonna be there.
Yeah.
Um,
Fair enough.
as far as the building itself, I think it's excellent. I'm pleased to have you folks as a neighbor. I'm not an expert on aesthetics, and I'm not gonna pretend to be one, but I think it's compared to Blight, this is a excellent development.
And I am, oh, sorry, go ahead. When you come again, I think what would be a really helpful view is the view as you're coming up, Hillbrook, and that first corner that you see, and you're seeing that entrance on, Hillbrook there. With school, that perspective, what everybody's first impression of the building, and from eye level, not from.
So coming in from Midway, seeing the entrance.
Everyone's gonna know the building for that too.
That's really good feedback because on that question, people have also asked, what does the sign gonna look like?
If I could just,
Yes, please.
I live at 61 School Street and arguably I'm gonna look at this more than anybody else. And I am completely on board with you guys as neighbors and I've come around to being really thrilled with the project. I like the footprint. We actually, my family and I strongly prefer the first design with the vertical
Oh, really?
elements. Yes,
Okay.
and I was on the historical commission.
We got beat up hard on that one.
As well. What was that?
We got beat up pretty hard
I
for
know,
that.
so I was that we weren't at that meeting, we should have been, because this, we have a hard time with this, with the horizontal elements, the mansard roof.
Mhm.
It feels a lot more jarring, and one of the questions that somebody in my family asked was, is it not feasible to just do a brick, all brick?
Yeah.
Is that not economically feasible anymore?
You know, it may or may not be. I mean, we could look at that. I think the problem that the architect is going to have. With the size of this, right? You only have so many angles and so many ways to give it, some dimension and depth. And if it's all brick, it will look like an institution.
Right.
Right? So I think what he's
This giant
what he's
brick.
trying to accomplish, and I'm not an architect or, any of this, but I think what he's trying to accomplish is trying to give it some depth and scope and the ability to go in and add different textures or colors to kind of soften it or, give it a different approach. Again, whether this is clapboard or shingle or whatever that is.
Could you
You know,
put
you
less units in? So it's like 25 units instead of,
I think that's really going.
Yeah, I
way
think
back
that-
this time.
Yeah, I think at this point, we had originally proposed 32 in the old building. And that generally works from the economic scale that we need to keep this project what it is, which is an affordable senior housing project. So less than 32 units.
Is the mansard roof, is that strictly ornamental?
Yeah.
Was that his attempt to try?
Yeah.
And is that something we could? get
We-
rid of? Yeah, the flat roof, I'm fine. You like the mansard roof? I really, yeah, we
We need
really.
to look at both possibilities.
Absolutely. I would just like to see both, what do you feel about?
I prefer the flat roof.
Yeah.
It is a flat roof.
Well, flat roof. is a
No,
flat
I'm
facade.
saying without that mansard.
Yes.
Because it really is just an add-on. And I also really wonder about looking up at that white piece that finishes off from underneath, and that's gonna be like.
Like this drip edge here, all under these here, the eaves
That's
there.
gonna be so prominent, and I just think it's kind of fake. And unfortunate, well, but.
I'm trying to get context for everybody. I haven't been involved for a while, so.
Yes, correct.
I realize you can't be all things to all people. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, that's looks like a heck of a long way to walk out to take your garbage. I don't have any better suggestion at the moment, I mean, but if this facility is primarily for seniors, it's hard for me to envision carrying a big bag of garbage that distance.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have some interior
Yep, I mean,
place where it could be taken and then picked up or something?
I'm again, I'm not I don't run these facilities. I have a colleague who does, but I do know that in some of our facilities, we do have an area where, people can bring their trash. We have facility maintenance people that can help individuals if they need moving trash or bulky items out. There is going to be a housing manager person that will be there at some point, during the week. Usually, I don't know how many hours they're going to be there during the week, but there's usually a housing management person, facilities maintenance people, as well as what we call residential service coordinators that work with seniors, especially seniors with needs like that. Like they have mobility issues or whatever. They make accommodations for them, and they do other things like they set up parties and have events and that kind of thing as well.
I guess one other thought would be that portico, that's the main
Right here.
entrance, if it could be extended some attractive way that maybe it doesn't have a flat roof, maybe it does, but that it would come out to the edge of the pavement where again, seniors could get in and out of their vehicles. Or somebody could drop them off, if the weather's inclement or.
Yep.
whatever.
So while we're talking about that, that's a really great point, because there is, especially when the weather's nice, there is, the seniors tend to congregate and they like covered areas, and particularly everybody does, right? What we're considering, again, so you would have the shed, this is just a storage shed, but we're imagining that the dumpster will go over here. There will also be a generator, a fairly significant diesel generator that we're going to try to locate on the north side of the building, because it cuts on every month. It is a little noisy. It runs for a few minutes. So we're trying to locate that as far away from the residential part as possible. But then the other thing that we do a lot is what am I trying to say? Like the gazebo. Thank you. We're going to put a gazebo somewhere on the property. We've been talking about potentially putting it down here. Again, that's a long distance to walk for a gazebo, but having some sort of covered area, we just haven't figured out how we're going to locate all that stuff just yet.
If I could just say that I think a lot of the objections to the kind of townhouse kind of version was, at least my objection was that it was very dark to light. It was super stripy. And I thought the idea was good. It was creating a lot of shade. That was really.
Yeah.
Thing that was on the wall. Yeah. It looked tall that way. It was the same thing. No, I know, but this looks shorter.
I just wanted to say that I think this version is far softer than the initial version that I saw. I also wanted to say I was in hopes, and we had discussed this at the select board, trying to keep the building reminiscent of the old building, 80 Gray. And I think that's done in this. To me, it's reminiscent, the shapes, some of the bricks. It reminds me of 80 Gray far more than the other. Oh, yeah, much.
Is that?
I was gonna say, because having been the last principal of that building, I'm not sure if this is for Volunteers of America or the town or both. I would like to see something like they have it doesn't have to be on the building, but maybe in that front piece that's still town owned, a museum in the street sign that delineates the history of the site, because it's two schools and a church over a couple hundred years. And I think having a museum in the street sign there, Max, I said, I don't know if this is town, Volunteers of America or both, but I think a museum in the street sign to give the history of the place as people go by would because you're not gonna recreate the actual building, but something to. It meant a lot when I went in there to see that plaque, which Bill now has, that talks about, I didn't know there used to be a church there. And so it, you give the full history of this site, I think is important, without having to try and make it look exactly like. Exactly.
What is the name of it going to be? What's the name?
Right now, it's just called the 80 Grade Project, so it may retain the same name. I mean, no one's actually asked that question, which I find very interesting because.
I want to see it on the
Good
building
idea.
somewhere, but you know,
Good idea.
let's have a contest.
It's a good-
Is it no heaven?
I mean, Bear Hill came from somewhere. It used to be Church Street before they called it the church.
Bear Hill has to do with, a gentleman that used to own Bear Hill. Name escapes, they shot
You-
Bear on that hill.
Usually you work with the community to find someone who's a historic figure or a local community leader that's retired or passed. And, name it after that individual. So, on the historic part, we drew this in the design, but this is actually on the town owned piece of property right up front where the current flagpole is. On the front of the current building is the school facade piece, right? Well, that's in multiple sections and we're gonna try to preserve that. We thought it was granite, but it's actually a cement. So we're gonna try to preserve that and hopefully preserve it for this wall here. So you'll have a historic component as well. Yes, sir.
Chances are that Walboro High School is probably gonna be like the old Walboro Ford garage. They thought it was solid piece of the granite. And it's basically a stucco. Once they stack it, it just
It just crumbled.
So
yeah.
chances are probably gonna be the same.
We thought it was 3 pieces and then the after the engineering, they think it's like 12 pieces.
It's gonna be a plot,
Yeah.
if it is solid, then
Yeah.
it's gonna be a nice,
The letters.
it's gonna be a nice landmark. And they took down the old Ford garage, same thing, everybody thought it was a solid piece. And they started pulling it off and just crumbled.
Yeah.
So,
Max, can we bring that up? Because I do want to show, there's a lot of conversation around the roof line. I want to. Yeah, definitely want to show them some of the other.
Yeah.
Spots. Let's
maybe that's good.
A lot of people move into it. Yeah, why?
So I want to show folks this image. For a couple different reasons. One, because it shows a couple different textures. So you got the shingle and the clapboard, but you also have the pitch roof. Unfortunately, because it had to fit on the slide, what this is demonstrating is what this would look like in the neighborhood setting. And this is huge. So at this pitch, this adds extra 11 feet to the building. So it brings up to, what is the max? 42 feet. So this brings up to 42 feet, which dwarfs everything else around it. So that would be another reason to consider the flat roof, or why we are considering the flat roof, is because just the overall scope of the building and the feel of the building and how it's going to sit in the neighborhood. This may soften the building some in terms of its look, but it's going to bring the scale way up as opposed to the flat roof.
I think the flat roof is fine, and it sounds like it's more economical for construction as well as, heating purposes,
Well, I think it's more economical operationally.
operate or not.
Yeah, okay.
But, yeah, it's really the mansard decoration that we're.
Yeah.
But, totally agree with that, everything looks much more overlooked. I know, we disagree.
Yeah.
It's okay.
But you have a drawing in this presentation that showed, I think it was your house. The scale, a section through that showed the neighbor's house with the new building, and it was, I think that's a really helpful,
I would actually love to see, because we only saw the small,
Yeah, I don't have it in this presentation, unfortunately.
but I can see how you guys.
Was it in your Was it in your planning board packet?
Yes.
Yes, maybe Max can pull that up and we can take a look at that. Yes, ma'am.
Any consideration given to option for part of the carport and open garage kind of thing?
No, we, it's not, that was one thing we did not consider, a carport. We don't have that in any of our facilities currently. We don't have that in any of our facilities currently. We have 500 units of affordable senior housing all over the state. And we don't have any carports like that in any of our facilities.
Be nice for a senior.
It would be.
So.
So, yes, go ahead.
Say, I think the point that was made about the entryway being most important, that sign, I think is critical, for, like, on that corner, however it's best designed, like I said, I don't know what works, you guys are see scope and line, and I'm.
Yes.
But I'm just happy that.
Yeah. And generally, there would be a smaller sign probably located on, one side or the other. Usually it's not gonna be huge in scope,
Right.
3x4 or whatever, it would be pretty large, I would think. And it's usually dependent on code as well, as to what size sign, but it usually just says the name of the facility. There will be some things that HUD requires us to put at the bottom, handicap accessible and, that kind of thing. Name of the facility and Volunteers of America, and it's really that simple. They're all pretty standard. If you look at any of our facilities across the state, all the signs pretty much look the same.
How many elevators do you have?
We'll have one elevator that'll be located kind of centrally in the building, yeah.
And it'll be the whatever apartments, you think the name or?
It's,
Have a variety of your other complexes of how they're called?
usually they're just referred to by whoever the individual the building is named after. We don't necessarily call them apartments.
Thank you. What about
Yeah, we call them, like, for
outdoor
instance-
lighting?
Outdoor light, I'll get to that one second. Like, for instance, Everett J Reynolds House is our one in Belfast, right? We call everything a house. Yeah. Outdoor lighting will be all at I don't remember the specific requirements, maybe you do from the planning board, but do you recall, it's all down face lighting, and I don't remember if there was like any other requirements that came out of that.
Night sky, regulations, yep.
Yeah. So no big floodlights shining on the neighbors. There will be a 6-foot fence that will go along the edge to delineate between the properties.
Parking area,
What's that?
lighting,
Yes, lighting throughout the general parking area.
there is light.
Yes.
What would that look like?
Usually on a pole down facing, so it's not going into neighbors' properties. And then over here, there'll be a crosswalk to attach to the sidewalk.
There's gonna be a sidewalk.
There
No,
are the
one on the
existing
other side.
sidewalk, yeah, the existing sidewalk on the other side of the street.
On the screening of the trees and that sort of thing. They always look nice in the drawings, and then they put up these little sticks. Do you have a caliper or size in mind?
I don't, and that's gonna be up to the architect and the landscape person. Generally, there's a general size that they will put up. I can't say if they're gonna be 5 feet or 8 feet or 20 feet. I don't know that.
It's the mansard.
Is that the one with the?
This is the one that shows like comparison.
Yeah.
That's what.
They're not gonna get that right away. They can take 20 years.
At least.
Yeah.
Well, they're not gonna put in the design.
No,
They won't have to be that big in the beginning. 40 years old.
No, I know.
Everybody hears?
Yeah, everyone.
So it's sounding like, so maybe if I can just take a step back for a second and just take some notes so I can give feedback. So we have some who are in favor of and some who do not like the mansard design. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay,
It's not gonna be easy. We've all been here, like, it's our fourth meeting, fifth meeting maybe together, you know, something
Yeah.
like that. And we've gotten to this point. So it's taken a long time to get to this point. Why throw it, why even consider throwing it out?
throw out what?
You know, this.
No,
what you have.
I'm not considering throwing anything out. I just want to make sure that I'm hearing what people are saying. We're taking some notes, and if there's a different approach that may please everyone, great. I'm not going to please everyone. It's not going to happen. Right.
But how can you decide because we're gonna have a vote? No,
No,
you
they're
have to
just
go
doing
by
it.
these meetings.
Yeah.
And look, what?
But this
Ten
meeting
bucks
is a
there, people.
repeat of the planning board meeting, they just said that more notices, so this isn't like another.
Yeah.
Vote or something, it's just.
No, I know, I realize that, but I'm saying, how are they gonna decide? You know, just by these meetings? What are we gonna, vote?
It is a
Well, eventually, so
number of people who vote for something.
Right.
eventually we're gonna fall on what we consider the final designs, and then we're gonna bring that back to the planning board, and then people can make comments there.
Okay.
But we want to hear from as many people as possible before we get there. I mean,
I think your drawings need to be more accurate, because they're not very accurate right now.
accurate in terms of what?
Well, like that line of trees that isn't going to be there, the little tiny looking shed out back, that's not gonna look like that. You know, where are the dumpsters gonna go? Where's the generator gonna go? Where's all that stuff gonna go?
Yeah, again, these are designs that were specifically for the planning board package so that we can get the initial part of this approved and get moving.
These are the most critical things. These are the things that are gonna make this so ugly. All these things all over the place in a. What is gonna put it out in the back 40, some, like little. Thing that these old people that can't even walk to the car, they're gonna go down and sit and enjoy that. They're not gonna do that. If they're that old, I'm only 66 and I have a cane.
Mhm.
I'd need help doing some of the things if I had to live there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's not very well thought out.
Well, I mean, we've been doing this for a while. I think you'd be surprised at how active and mobile a lot of our folks are. Again, we're talking 55 and 62 plus is the requirement. So, I mean, yes, a lot of our folks are 70, 80 plus, but they're mobile. This is not end of life care. This is not a nursing home. This is independent living. People are going to come here understanding what their abilities are.
I think the other thing my parents are in senior housing. And the place they're in, I call it the fortress, that looks that pleasing to the eye. But they have a lovely apartment and they're very happy with the apartment. And in the end, that to me is gonna be the most important thing, is the comfort of the people within. They're probably not gonna care whether it's a mansard. I think you want to hear from all the neighbors and get their opinions and give everybody a chance to speak. And then you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yes. And again, I've offered this every time I've been here to whatever group I'm speaking with this community forum, whatever. If you folks want to come see what our senior housing looks like.
You have
That's much more attractive.
Yeah, I can take you to Thomaston, I can take you to Belfast. Those are the easiest ones to get to. We can go to any of them that you want to see.
Well, I just need the address. I can go myself. I'd like to talk to the neighbors that have to live around this property and see how happy.
I highly encourage that.
Right.
Would you have, before you leave today, would you have an address for your Thomas place?
Yeah, I can get that for you. I don't know it off the top of my
I
head.
drive by it I drive by Thomas every
Let me
day.
see if- let me-
I need due diligence.
Yeah, girl next to the, I don't know them. Homes in Maine.
So if you actually want to tour the inside, you'll have to let me know. All of our facilities are locked. You can't just walk in. So everyone, all the residents have a key. But like I said, we do have staff on site who can show you around and introduce you.
Excuse me, the three up front. Ben, were you able to hear all that?
Those are
I
very institutions.
but yes, the gist of it is, if either of you before I leave. I can get the address for Thomaston, I'd like to swing by and just see the outside of it. I'm not trying to have a thought. I just
think it's attractive.
Max, maybe, it would be good to, if on any information page you have as part of the FAQ, you can link to our affordable our senior affordable housing page, and it'll show all of the locations.
If I can just say, in my work as a visiting nurse, I've been in a number of the.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Ladies,
Polly, can you guys hold it down?
Okay, you need to have a discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, form going on.
I just wanted to say that my work as a visiting nurse, I've been in a number of the BOA facilities, from Belfast to Thomaston to down south. And they're lovely inside and they're lovely outside. I think you guys are gonna be great neighbors, very enthusiastic. Very clean, quiet. Taking care of the residents that I did was able to meet.
Thank you for saying. Yeah, I appreciate that.
thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate that.
What do you think your schedule is as far as coming to the planning board again?
I don't really know right now. I would hope by the end of the summer. Right now, I'm really focused on getting the phase one part done, which is the demo and you can get that part done. Get the property settled, focus on getting the applications in for financing that we know is coming available this summer. And then probably at some point after that in the fall.
Is there somewhere to see a list of the applications that you're gonna make for the financing? Is there a list of all those? You had mentioned them earlier in the meeting. Is there anywhere where there's a list of them?
A list of them, like you want to see the actual application itself?
No, I wanna see who you're applying to.
Sure.
On the first
It's
slide.
on the slide, right?
It's on the slide. I mean, you
I
can,
don't have it.
Well,
I made a list, Val, I can give it to you later.
Okay.
yeah.
I wrote it down. Brian, can I ask?
Yeah. So just one second. So the HUD, the federal HUD website, HUD 202 is going to be the main one, and LIHTC, LIHTC through mainhousing.gov. If you look those up, those are what we're going after for the preponderance of the funding. There are also a ton of state dollars coming out. I think 3 different tranches of state dollars that we might be looking at as well. So we have to braid our funding together to make these projects work.
I was gonna ask a question off the topic of the aesthetics, but in terms of the demolition. What do you guys have to do in order to contain critters? That might be residing in the building now that are gonna wanna come to my house for breakfast.
That's a great point. Yeah, I haven't even thought about that.
Okay.
So I will ask that, they're doing the engineer does a whole thing about, I don't know if they look at the animals that live within as part of like the relocation plan,
Okay.
but I'll ask.
Yeah, maybe we need more. There's a lot of chipmunks and some. big rats that I've seen. Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Excited about it. Thank you for all the.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Patient.
No, this is great. So I think, that I don't imagine that we'll have another one of these like next week. But I'm assuming once we get into the demo and I can get some of the financing stuff, we get a little closer to the next phase. With the planning board, we'll try to get another one of these together with some updated designs and just get feedback along the way. I think that's the best way to do it. But at any point, Max knows this. Anyone can reach out to me directly. They have my email address, my phone number, just call the town office. I will take feedback from anyone.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
So does this mean that your whole design might be different
No.
in 6 months?
No. So this building envelope is not going to change. Okay. What I'm
Just the
talking about in,
facade.
in terms of design elements are these elements, right?
Yeah.
So all the facade stuff.
And the colors.
Colors, where some of this stuff sits on the ground. One thing that may or may not change, we're looking at right now, is there's 48 condenser units. There may be a possibility to do 3 units that carry 16, the load of 16 each, right? And then where do we locate that? Does that go on the roof? Or does it go on the north side? We don't know just yet. So it's more of these tiny adjustments. What we need to know is how this is gonna sit on the land. What our parking lot's gonna look like, so that we can then start building it, because we know what each one of the units is gonna look like. We can start laying out the interior of the building and building out what it's gonna cost. And that's what we need to go out for finance. Yes, sir.
I'm interested in the demo portion of it. Max knows, I represent the Historical Society.
Yeah,
And as you probably know, the time capsule.
I heard.
Supposedly,
I heard
we're only going by somebody's writings years ago. And
somebody swore to me they knew where it was too, so,
we think the northeast corner.
yeah,
And some of the bricks.
Yeah.
And we did make a request to the town a couple years ago on the 4 light fixtures that are out there.
Yeah.
On the door. So when it gets to that stage, hopefully, Mac,
yeah.
keep you in the loop.
No, we'll definitely be in the loop about all that. All of our engineers that are working on this stuff know that what we're trying to do and what we're trying to preserve. What was the other thing? So I was curious what you guys are gonna do with the scoreboard. Is that that is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, we'll find, we got another building down in West Waldeboro, the old West Waldeboro Community Schoolhouse that we own.
Yeah,
We got storage area down there for that.
yeah, 'cause I would hate to see that
Yeah, I mean,
get
it
destroyed.
comes down and it's in one piece, it's out the world.
Yeah.
We'll save it.
Yeah,
If there were an opportunity for crazy people like me to have a connection with the building, to have a couple of bricks before they.
dude, yeah, you can have I'm sure you can have all the bricks you want.
I'm not
more.
I'm not building a chip shop. Yeah. No,
There's gonna be a lot of people, I think, that went to school there,
Yeah.
that gonna want bricks.
Yeah.
And I'm talking original class.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's not a horrible fundraiser idea. We did it when we did our the cabins in the woods, veterans housing up in Togus. We sold bricks.
You guys. sold
Yeah,
bricks.
we sold bricks. We wouldn't do it for this project because I just don't have the capacity to do it. But if you guys wanted to work with us
Well,
on
that's what I'm
something,
thinking, if maybe you could save the bricks and it's a fundraiser for the historical site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because eventually we've gotta. Probably go to the planning board, with a future addition that we wanna do.
Yeah.
Because we've been running out of space and we've got a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, just.
okay. Well, we'll
Max,
just.
Max can find.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that, our architect and engineers are all looped into that as well. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any reason why this was aesthetically designed that way rather than after the historic buildings, commercial buildings in town? I mean, for example, if you look there, they're a more colonial style window and
Yeah, I think if
trims and things like that. This looks to me like a office park or a. Doesn't look like it belongs in Waldeboro to me.
yeah. So I think it's I think
Looks like a nice. Charming residence or attractive, just looks like a brick box that you live in.
yeah. I think it's a delicate balance, right? So, you've got a lot of different styles.
It's what?
You have a lot of different styles of architecture, going through Waldeboro, just like every town, right? So, and you have an existing building that has its own architectural elements. And I think that's, the architect is really trying to balance all of those things together and give you something that's not going to be, yeah, but he's trying to give you something that's not going to be,
That's, oh, it's nice and attractive except for the Sproul building. Which just looks like a modern day version of
Mhm.
my view.
Okay,
Sprawl is a box.
you softened it with the top layer. You know, it looks
Much nicer.
That's probably, yes, much. nicer. So, I mean, Sproul is not. Like a box.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for your time.
I don't wanna spend money on.
All right, so I don't know.
Oh,
if there's
right,
any-
now I would move in.
What's that? I think-
Oh, sure.
It's room on the- online.
Right.
It's a Marshall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marshall, I kind of-
It was-
That was great.
Oh, yeah. it's, yeah. No, possibly Matt wasn't in a, it was,
I guess it-
I think-
All right, well, thank you everyone for
Thank you.
coming. Seriously,
Thank you.
get my contact information if you have feedback, things you want to show me, samples of other buildings that you like. Please send those along.
What are you saying?